Hello everyone and welcome back to Fuserdamus Plays Nuclear Throne. I figured I would show my very first video of the completely finished game. The game just came out of early access. Granted, it's been in early access for about 2 years now, and I have about 200 hours in the game. But I figured I would show my very first run, and it was a pretty good one. It was pretty fun, so figured I'd show you. So if you have no experience with this game, basically it's a top-down bullet hell, procedurally generated kind of roguelike. Think maybe Contra meets Binding of Isaac, and you have an idea of what this game is like. The character I'm playing as is Fish. His special ability on his right click is that he can roll around. It's marginally useful. You can dodge some things if you're good with it, but for the most part it's just I use it for moving around quickly. And his passive ability, every character has a different passive ability, and his is that he gets more ammo for ammo drops. Those little yellow squares that keep dropping, those are ammo pickups. So as you progress through the game, you pick up these little green particles called rads, or radiation, and that's basically your experience, and that's how you level up. So every time you level up, you get a new mutation, because apparently you're mutating from all the rads that you're absorbing, and there's assorted abilities that you can get. The one I picked for my very first level is called Rabbit Paw, which increases the drop chance of health packs and chests, or ammo drops as well. And that second upgrade that I just took is called Plutonium Hunger, which increases the range at which I can pick up those items. Like, it gives me kind of a tractor beam, kind of like the magnet in Binding of Isaac, but it's much more useful than the magnet is. So the two weapons I have right now is the crossbow, which you see me using now, and the laser pistol. Now last patch, the laser pistol was kind of bugged and it was doing double damage. It's still a good weapon, but it's not a weapon that you can use in the late game like it used to be. But as you progress through the game, each level is procedurally generated, but it always follows a specific pattern, just like in Binding of Isaac, where you go to the basement, then the caves or catacombs, and then the depths, or Necropolis. This game always goes the desert, and then it goes to that little sewer level, and then it goes into here, which is called oh shoot, what is it called? The junkyard, I think. Oh, I neglected to talk about that last mutation I took. It's called Trigger Fingers, and what it does is it allows you to have a near instant reload each time you kill an enemy. So it allows you to use really slow firing weapons and still have a decent rate of fire, because it reloads the weapon immediately after you kill an enemy with the shot. Granted, it punishes you if you miss, because you don't get that improved reload time. But if you hit something, then you're completely good to go. You saw last level I picked up a heavy crossbow, which shoots a different variety of bolt than the regular crossbow. It does a little over double damage, as far as I can tell. So ordinarily I don't really like the heavy crossbow because it shoots so slowly, but since we have trigger fingers, then that's not a problem at all. So this boss is called Big Dog, and he is pretty easy. The biggest problem with Big Dog is that his level is always extremely open, so you have to deal with a lot of bullet hell before you actually fight him and kill him. The last mutation I took just before the previous level was called Strong Spirit. You can see that little halo above my character's head. Basically what happens with Strong Spirit is that if you take lethal damage, it will consume your Strong Spirit instead of you losing. And then Strong Spirit will recharge once you get back to full HP. Now it will only save you once per level. So for instance, let's say you lose Strong Spirit, and then you get back up to full HP in the same level. Strong Spirit will not be active again until you reach the next floor. It used to not be like that. You used to be able to recharge it immediately. But it used to be extremely overpowered as well, because you'll see later, but in the late game there are a lot of enemies on the field. And a lot of enemies means that there's a lot of health drops and a lot of chances to regain health. So you can basically just run through tanking the enemies, just killing them all and taking damage, and you'll stay at full HP. But you can't quite do that any longer. So there you see I switched from the heavy crossbow to the super crossbow. You'll see what it does. It's much more of a crowd control weapon rather than major damage to one target. I don't think there's a specific tier list of weapons, like this weapon is objectively better than the other, or you know, this is A tier, this is B tier, etc. I think a lot of it comes down to personal preference. Granted, there are objective upgrades over other weapons. The heavy revolver is an objective upgrade over the regular revolver, that kind of thing. But everybody has their own opinion and their own playstyle. But I think for the most part what it comes down to is how efficient is your weapon at killing things. Like how many enemies per round can you kill? Because if you don't have an efficient enough weapon, maybe it kills things really quickly, but you'll run out of ammo really quickly. So we switched the heavy revolver for the bouncer shotgun. It shoots these little bouncy shots. Which recently got a buff, I think a few weeks ago. They do an extremely high amount of damage. So there's a few things that I need to talk about. I realize I've been slacking on it. My last two mutations I took was second stomach. So ordinarily health drops give you 2 HP. Second stomach means that each health drop that you pick up gives you 4 instead. And then the other mutation I took is called Impact Risk, and what it does is that it makes the enemies' corpses fly around the screen and deal damage to their allies, their living allies. It's reasonably good for the first part of the game, but it becomes extremely strong later in the game because there's a lot of enemies on the screen, and obviously that means there's more enemies to impact with. We also killed the boss in the last level called Little Hunter. He can be extremely difficult, but if you take your time, use your cover to your advantage, then he's not so bad. He does kill me more often than I'd like to admit, but he's not impossible. So right there you saw I lost Strong Spirit. I should have died there, but Strong Spirit saved my life. And there I'm back at full HP, so next level I'll get my Strong Spirit back. So there I took bolt marrow because I'm using the super crossbow. Basically what it does is it makes your bolts that your crossbow is shooting home onto enemies. So it just improves the efficiency of the weapon even further. Because a super crossbow obviously uses 5 bolts per pull of the trigger, so it's not a particularly efficient weapon for one target, one target that doesn't have a ton of HP, because there's a lot of overkill involved. But for clearing out large areas very quickly, especially with trigger fingers, it's a great weapon. So here we are at the quote-unquote final boss. This is the throne. I was thinking about picking up that energy sword. I guess I end up doing that. But basically, like melee weapons are really strong, particularly the energy sword, because it has a high rate of fire. Like you can swing it really quickly. It does a good amount of damage, and it can block shots. And if you're not careful, the throne can be really bullet helly, and you have to be kind of careful of all the rounds that are flying through the air. So there you saw me wait. That portal has a tractor beam, and you saw me wait for the other weapons to be sucked in, because I don't want to use this energy sword forever. I want to use that bouncer shotgun still. I was considering using this guitar that Fish can get, because it does a good amount of damage and it doesn't take any ammo, but I don't have the mutation that gives you longer melee range, so I figured it might be a bad decision. And here we are in the loop. So we go right back to our first starting area, but obviously you can tell there's a lot more enemies, and it's a lot more difficult. And these vans show up, which drop a lot of IDP. So you gotta be careful of that. But if you saw when I first entered that level, I just spammed my bouncer shotgun. Because I was killing a lot of enemies, I had almost instant reload speed with that thing, so I can put out a lot of killing power all at once. So now I'm at max level. You can see my level turned into that crown. That means next time I go into a portal right now, I'll get my my final mutation, my ultimate mutation. The one I'm going for is Gun Warrant, which gives you infinite ammo for the first 7 seconds after exiting a portal. So for high damage, inefficient weapons, kind of like the super crossbow, it's really good, because I probably killed 100 enemies or something right there before even having to use any ammo. And there I was trying to get into that little vault thing. You have to fill it up with reds before you can get in, but unfortunately the van ran it over. I'll talk about it more. We get into one later, and I'll talk about it more when we get there. I used to think these bouncing weapons were shit, but the more I used them, the more I really liked them. So here you see we get to fight 2 big bandits rather than just the one. But it went pretty smoothly because we have extremely high damage weapons. But if you have trigger fingers, it seems like this bouncer shotgun does a significant amount of damage. You can easily clear a level just spamming it out there, and it's pretty ammo efficient. Like, you almost never run out of ammo with it. I didn't talk about that last mutation before Gun Warrant. It was Rhino Skin, which means I have 4 extra max HP. So it's a pretty straightforward mutation, but it's pretty good. I wish I could have gotten Bloodlust for this playthrough. Bloodlust gives you a chance to regain health when you kill enemies. I think it's about a 10% chance to regain 1 health after killing an enemy. So you see the number of enemies that you're fighting. Bloodlust keeps you alive for a long, long time. And unlike Second Stomach, which is also a good health mutation to keep you alive, you don't have to get very close in order for Bloodlust to work. You just have to be killing enemies from any range, and you'll get the health. So this boss is called Mom, or Ball Mom, whatever you want to call her. She spawns all these annoying little guys that mutate when they get into that poison, and then they start spewing poison, the toxin. And she regenerates from the poison, so you have to try to kill her quickly once you start fighting her. But overall, that level can be really difficult, but it went well. So here the main thing I want to do is get the crown vault open, so I can get a crown, which is a alteration to the way the game is played, kind of like the skulls and Hades. The one I want is called Crown of Blood, which gives you extra enemies on the screen, a lot more, probably double, but you get less radiation per. But since we're at max level, we don't care about the fewer rounds, but we want more enemies because your score is based on the number of enemies that you kill at a time. And since we have Second Stomach and Rabbit Paw, we want more enemies on the screen because that's more chance to get weapon and ammo drops. So you actually get more ammo when you do Crown of Blood than when you don't. Seems kind of counterintuitive because you'd think you need to spend more ammo to kill more enemies. Which to a certain extent that's true, but because we have homing bolts with this this extremely powerful super crossbow, then we're really efficient at killing enemies. Like, each bolt can probably kill 3 or 4 enemies if they're standing in a line with one another. So you saw I nearly died there. Strong Spirit saved me yet again. through here I pick up the blood cannon, which does a lot of damage and it blocks shots. But if you shoot it when you have no ammo in the weapon, it starts taking your health. So you have to be kind of careful and mindful of what you're doing with it. This can be a another really tough boss, this hypercrystal, because it takes up so much of your ammo, because it keeps spawning these guys that are blocking the shots. But overall it went pretty good. I was really considering taking that blood cannon because it is really good. It's a great weapon. But I decided to stick with this bouncer shotgun. It's done me well in the past, so why mess with a good thing? It ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And there you go, I got it for full HP, and since this is not the level that I lost my strong spirit on, then it came back. So I'm good to go again for the foreseeable future, unless I take some terrible damage. And you can see how full you get to stay on ammo with Rapid Paw. I've been spamming the weapons non-stop when I was full on the crossbow and nearly full on the whatever the other one is called, the bouncy shotgun. So I decided to go and pick up this Hyper Slugger because it shoots more directly than that bouncer shotgun does, and I couldn't really get an efficient shot in through that little cubby hole because the weapon has so much spread on it. And with Gun Warrant, this is the absolute worst spawn you can possibly have. Really tanky enemies that you can't kill quickly. Because essentially with Gun Warrant, you want as many enemies within shooting range as you possibly can at the beginning of the level, so you can make the most out of your free ammo. You gotta be careful of those golden tanks because they shoot a bazooka shot, and if you're not careful, they can easily kill you in one shot. You saw I got really sloppy there and nearly died. And now we're in the Crown Vault once more. We didn't really want to be in here, but we kind of had to break that and get out of the level, because I think I would have died if I had stayed. And because this counts as a transition level, then we have our Strong Spirit back right now. You notice those guys that shoot the exploding like plasma cannon shots? Those guys are there on the second and subsequent times that you get cover. And right here you see this fucking terrible position from the spawn. And we die. It's a little hunter and his friends. And you see all my new unlocks. Anyway, I hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed the episode, and thanks for watching.